there, welcome back. Today I'm doing this thing that's been doing by quite a few YouTubers around in our grouping, which is films for years of my life. Chris Mahan was the one who started it. Well, I think he said it was by someone else. And Saoirse Ronan did it. And SGS Films have done it. I've seen Chris's, I've seen Ronan's video. I've not seen SGS's film video on it yet. I will at some point. Maybe. Does he deserve me to watch it? I mean, answer please. Like, should I watch his one too? Like, it's just you can answer too if you want. Right. But yeah, I'll watch it at some point. Probably while I'm around for these ones. So yeah, I've done films for years of my life. I've kind of done emotional films of 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, where you get a general idea of what kind of films I watched in certain periods and what the ones that had an emotional attachment to me. So they've done a few years ago, so if you want to go back to my channel and watch them, they're there. So I thought I'd take the challenge up of just one film. I'm not cheating like Saoirse Ronan did and chose 2 or 3. I tried to make it out that I would not actually choose more than one film, and I tried to not choose the same films as Saoirse Ronan. I failed a couple of occasions. A couple of years on mine, it was like, well, I'm going to choose the same one because I'm not going to not choose it because he chose it. But I've tried usually not to just make it more interesting. So if you're watching his video and watch mine, you get a different film. It's just that every so often there's one that's like, when he cheated in his, like I rendered that as being void basically, because if you choose 2 for a film for a year of your life, you choose 2, then it's worthless. You just don't have the guts to actually choose the right one. Yeah. You may as well, insult it a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to start off with 1973, which is when I was born. I was born I think a month after The Exorcist was released, which tells you a lot. I think Ronan was 75 when his one started, or 74. We're both old and going to die soon. That's really it. So for 73, I've chosen Three Musketeers. I'm not going to change the image every time I change to another year of film. I'm going to do like, you get an image per decade up here. That's it. That's all I'm doing. So Three Musketeers by Richard Lester. It's wonderful. It's silly. It's a film I saw so many times as a child that it means a lot to me. So I'm keeping it as a film that I have watched a lot. Okay. And it's something that means a lot to me from that year and just generally in childhood. Great cast, Oliver Reed, Richard Chamberlain, Charlton Heston, everybody was in it. If you're an actor who wandered through Europe at the time, you're probably in this film somewhere. 1974, I'm going for a very different film, also set in the past, is Lancelot de Lac by Robert Bresson. I'm a big King Arthur fan. There's been not many good ones, but they all came out around about the same time. I mean, from in the 70s, basically. Lancelot de Lac, came out, Holy Grail came out, and another film that I'll choose another year came out as well, based in King Arthur myths. So, King Arthur is big for me. First one is done right. Even if it's done badly, I'll probably still watch the film. But yeah, Lancelot de Lac, Bresson's Lancelot de Lac is just astonishing. Beautiful. I adore it. Right. 1975, well, Ronan chose Jaws because it's an easy choice. I chose a good choice. I chose Barry Lyndon. Sodgy. Barry Lyndon's great. Barry Lyndon is one of my favourite Kubrick films. It is just so good. I adore Barry Lyndon. It's just one of my go-tos for Kubrick or for the 70s. I just think it's beautiful, it's haunting, it's a very emotional film. I don't get why people don't think it's emotional. I just don't get it. But people are people. For 1976, I have Assault on Precinct 13. John Carpenter's wonderful second film that I absolutely adore. This is one of the films I watch when I need to rediscover my faith in cinema. This is one of the films I go back to. It's one of those ones that just always brings me back to and love cinema. It just is one of those films. It's just beautiful, and it's made in low budget, but it's just gorgeous. So that's my 76 film. I think I've covered so many of these films otherwise, so I'm not going to stay on them for too long. I'm just trying to give you a general idea of each one, each choice. Right, 77 is Buñuel's final film, That Obscure Object of Desire, which is a picture which we've got here. So it's just wonderful. It's an adorable film. So it's a bit lust in how you view your partner as different people almost, depending on your mood and depending on their mood, and how everything changes just according to headspaces, which is a theme that Buñuel's been doing for years. I mean, you look at Elle and the Archibald de la Cruz from the 50s, I mean, it was constant. He was always coming back to this. And some of those are my favourite films because he's great in Obsession because he knows how absurd it is. So that's a wonderful film. Go see it. 78, I'm going for Big Wednesday, the John Milius film that is gorgeous, is emotional, it's just beautiful and moving. It's one of the earliest films I saw that I found beautiful and just moving. I saw it when I was quite young, and it's always affected me. It's a great film about life and how you change as you get older, and how expectations change as you get older, and how you have to deal with things as you age, but also deal with your dreams and how they change as you age as well. So it's not a perfect film, but it is perfect in a way for me. Right, 79 is the ones that overlaps where I was going to try and find something different, and I thought, sod it, I'll go the same as Ronin with Stalker. Stalker's gorgeous, Stalker's amazing. I couldn't find any other film that was as good as Stalker from 79. I just find Stalker to be the great film from 79. And I'll eventually do a video on it, explain it all, but it's just amazing. Okay, going to the 80s now. I'm going to start with 1980. Now, there's lots of choices, lots of obvious choices, but there was one choice that was so obvious I had to choose it. And that was Dario Argento's Inferno. I bet you were expecting, like, Empire Strikes Back or something. No, it's Inferno. My favourite Argento movie. It's gorgeous. There's hardly any plot. It's all about imagery and mood and atmosphere. You know, it's the acting's not so great, but just the atmosphere is so amazing. Set in a haunted hotel, where the hauntings don't really matter. There's just crazy stuff going on. A house of witches that have lasted for centuries that needs to be cleansed. Some of it takes place in Italy. Some of it takes place in New York. It's all wonderful. It's just a beautiful film. So yep, Inferno gets my 1980 vote quite easily. 81 is Excalibur, another King Arthur movie. Again, probably not a surprise to some people. You know, I would choose Excalibur. Excalibur I adore. It's the whole story of King Arthur. Unlike Lancelot de Lac, which is much more about realism and mud and people try to survive and the myth within reality, this is myth as a gorgeous, like, multi-decade thing of the meaning of the Grail, the meaning of life, the meaning of storytelling, the meaning of myth for our culture and how we need it and how we needed to go beyond our own limitations. And it's just so romantic and so moving. And it's just wonderful. It's still a wonderful film that should be more appreciated, but it's just not, and it's a real shame. It doesn't get the attention it deserves. Right, now we're going for 82. Now there's some obvious stuff for 82, so I thought I would not do an obvious one. Like, some people go and do The Thing, or Blade Runner, and it's like, that's easy. That's so easy. How many would go for Conan the Barbarian? I'm now only 2 John Milius films. Conan the Barbarian is a very flawed debut for Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, he was in 1 or 2 films before this, but this was his big debut as a movie star. And it's utterly ridiculous. And every list needs something that's utterly ridiculous. And this is mine. This is insane, this film. Basically, Schwarzenegger goes from being a child to being a warrior with kind of fascist tendencies, probably. Like, everything's about steel and everything's about power. So you never want him to become a king, ever. But he's okay taking down James Earl Jones as a psychopath who is creating this massive snake cult that will destroy everybody. Right, to 83 now. I'm going a slightly different way. I'm going to try to Bresson. It's his final film, L'Argent. which is the corrupting influence of humanity, of money, of the effects of money on people, and the effects of corruption on people, and how simple things can ruin lives, can ruin multiple lives, and how people's faith in humanity can be utterly destroyed by the greed of others and by the indifference of others, and how ultimately a lot of your ideals don't matter to you, and you're destroyed by a life. It's an utterly pessimistic final film. It's very moving. It's gorgeous. I've done a whole video on it, so go see the video. It's one of my favourite videos I've done. So go see that. Lord John is amazing. 84, you can tell from what I've got behind me. It's Once Upon a Time in America, the proper version. Sergio Leone's film about Jewish gangsters from childhood to adulthood and to old age, and how their lives are destroyed by their own greed, their own corruption, but how the society around them doesn't really care, and how they just navigate and become more and more corrupt and become more horrible. And it's a wonderfully romantic film about loss amongst all this corruption. It is just beautiful. It's one of my favourite films ever. But none of the characters are very nice. So, there you go. Sergio Leone is very good at making beautiful films about people who you would never want to be anywhere near. Right, in 85, we're going to the first of Joe Dante's. It's Explorers, which is this film about children who go to find aliens and find out the aliens they've been dreaming of, or they've been trying to look up to as being this amazing thing, turned out to be other children. And it's a total send up of your dreams, but also a validation of your dreams. Is like, you do this for your passion, but it's also a passion that can be made absurd. It's just a wonderful look at the absurdity of your passions and how life can tweak. I mean, there's a lot of sci-fi elements, but it's really about how your passions can get tweaked by life, and how you should be into your stuff, but you should also be aware of the possible absurdities of your own of the things that thrill you. So it's a wonderful film. It's very underrated. It's very hard to find, but I'm hoping for mentioning this will get somebody to watch it or rewatch it. Okay, 86, covering the same film as Ronin again, Blue Velvet. I mean, there was a choice between that and Manhunter. This month I'm Blue Velvet mood. If I did it again next month, I might have been in Manhunter mood. It goes back and forward. But Blue Velvet's amazing. Blue Velvet's so funny, so dark, so twisted. So wrong in so many ways, but so wonderful, because it is like a fairy story about growing up, and every shot is perfect, and the build's perfect, and the whole thing is just works. And you're watching it, you think you can't believe how well it works, because it's taking so many chances and so many scenes, and then when it comes together at the end, it's like, that was perfect. That was just amazing. And you don't know how Lynch pulled it off. That's how good he is. So, yeah, go watch Blue Velvet. 87, I'm going for RoboCop. RoboCop is Paul Verhoeven's entry to America. It still is the great satire of capitalism from within the studio system. Even though it was done by Orion, which was kind of a smaller studio, it's still an American film that is utterly brutal about capitalism, about neoliberalism, about the need to control everything and buy everything and be the to own everything, basically, no matter what it does to other people around you. It's just a totally vicious satire on our worst instincts around capitalism, and how it ends up leading to tragedy for everybody, and just how our own greed causes it, because there's so few characters in this film that are decent. So many of them are utter scumbags, so there was that. It's, it's utterly cynical. Okay, 88 is Dead Ringers, another choice that Ronan made. Another one would be Cheated. I'm pretty sure Cheated and did a few in this year. Typical. Bloody typically. I mean, what a Scotsman can't make a decision. What the hell? Right. So 88 is Dead Ringers. Dead Ringers is a beautiful film, very haunting, very tragic, about twins, and about how how your links to other people, links into your own soul can be weaker than you think, and how the human connection is more fragile than you think it is, and more nuanced and more open to abuse by yourself and other people, and how people can be kind but also awful, and how yourself can be kind and awful at the same time. But it's just a beautiful film of humanity, ultimately. But it takes the idea of twins as the kind of metaphor for that. So, 89, I'm going for The Burbs, the other Joe Dante film on my list. The Burbs is hilarious. The Burbs is about paranoia. It's one of those films I've seen so many times. Just so many times. And I could quote most of it. Me and my friend Darren, as students, watched this film, I don't know, many times over 3 years. It was a lot. And just the idea of paranoia within people you live nearby, this whole one suburban area, and how you get your own little cliques, your own little theories, and how you're either in the clique or you're not, which could be any society. The idea how we go tribal, no matter what. All you need is a little excuse to go tribal. That person looks a bit different from us, and we will go crazy. So it's taking a bit of a veneer of society and showing you what's crazy underneath. And Tom Hanks is one of the best performances. He starts out very normal and very sane and becomes crazier and crazier as the film goes on. It's just insane. And he has a great speech then when he actually points out how it's them that's gone crazy, not anything else. So definitely go see this one. It's amazing. It's available on Arrow. It's stunning. Okay, now we're going to the 90s. The 90s is the period where I was actually watched these come out. A lot of the films from the 80s I saw later, the 70s. I saw afterwards. I didn't see them on release. I mean, I'm looking at my list. I didn't saw any of these on release. But 90s was when I started to see stuff as it came out. Like my choice of 1990, I saw Metropolitan from Whit Stillman really early on. I saw it pretty much in Channel 4 because it just got a cinema release and it was in Channel 4 almost instantly. So I saw it pretty much extremely early. I'm a big Whit Stillman fan. He's very funny. His films are very funny. They're very witty. They're very humane. They're like, to me, they're like what would happen if you gave Woody Allen a soul, you know? Because Woody Allen films are always kind of cool to me, but Metropolitan isn't, and Whit Stillman isn't. It's just these characters. They're upper class, but they have their problems. They're very human, very understandable what the problems are. They're not like they have their defences, they have their problems, but you understand where they're coming from. And some of the dialogue's astonishing in it. It's just hilarious, so funny. You can get it in Criterion just now. It's just so much worth having. 91 is Alex Cox's Highway Patrolman. This is a film he made after being blacklisted in the studios for Walker, which is all about, South American rebels and using Universal's money. So at this point he was blacklisted from the studios. They did not want to deal with him. So he went to Mexico and made Highway Patrolman, all about the corruption within the Mexican police system and how impossible it is to actually do good within this system. So it's an absurdist look at this with a cop who's pretty short, trying to stand up for the other little men and failing horribly. It's a wonderful film. A lot of Alex Cox's films in the 90s are wonderful. He can bounce back from being blacklisted by doing a lot of really good stuff. A lot of films he probably wouldn't have a chance to make if he was being quoted by the studios, but now he was blacklisted, he actually went and made the stuff he wanted to make, and there was a lot of really good stuff there. Okay, 92 is Last of the Mohicans, the Michael Mann film. It was a big changeover after Manhunter and after the coldness of Thief, and he took a chance and went back to the basically the 17th century and made a film about, or was it 18th century? I can't remember. But it was just it was as the revolution was starting to build slowly towards this revolution was going to happen. And France and the UK were fighting each other through America, and a lot of people were in tragic circumstances. People were getting murdered left, right and centre, and all to be in the militia or not be in the militia to serve this war that served nobody. And basically Hawkeye played with Daniel Day-Lewis. He was brought up by the Indians, and he just looks upon this war as useless. But them try to survive, try to rescue these women who are trapped within a political scheme between a bad Indian, played by West Studi, and the French invaders. It's a very human story, but it's also very romantic because it's Day Lewis being a romantic hero and doing action scenes and stuff like that, but it's also Madeleine Stowe as is intended, and she's brilliant as well. It's a romance where you like the people and you sense the heat between them, and it's just a wonderful film. And it's very moving at the end, and it's just a great, great film. Okay, so 93, I'm going for Naked, the Mike Leigh film. Starring David Thewlis about an angry young man who wanders around London, being homeless, talking to people and basically ranting at them about how corrupt the world is and how horrible it is and how he has no time for the world anymore, and it's about how people react to him and how people view him and how he's so self-destructive. He's contempt for everybody, including himself, and it's just about the nihilism of youth as someone who cannot find a way through, what he sees as the corruption of the world, like post-Thatcher Britain, where everything's about money and nothing's about community. It's just a corrupt cesspool for him. So it's a wonderful film about Britain in the 90s, but it's also a film about the way the world is now. So, definitely recommended. 94, I'm going for the Hudsucker Proxy. Hudsucker Proxy is a Coen Brothers film that was a massive bomb. It was barely released. We got it pretty late in the UK because it was released in America, bombed, and then we got it months later. And it was like, well, they tried and they failed, and what will become the Coen Brothers type of thing. This was before they did a bounce back with Fargo and then Big Lebowski, so they were fine. But this is a really good film. This is the underrated one. This is Tim Robbins as a guy who invents the hula hoop and who's all these weird inventions because he isn't the smartest guy, but he's a childish mind that actually can think up these things. But him dealing with big business. So it's a riff in 40s, 50s type of movies. It's a riff in a lot of movies that Coen Brothers liked, but done it their own way. And it's so enjoyable. It's just so much fun. So I'd highly recommend it. And also there's a great... They actually released the script. They did this... The Coen Brothers wrote this amazingly funny fake into Joel Silver's producer that you have to read to believe. It's just so hilarious. It's just such the Coen Brothers thing of actually doing a fake interview with their own producer and making up the most absurd stories. Right, so 95, I'm going for Before Sunrise, the Richard Linklater film, which is the start of the Before trilogy, and Before Sunset almost made it into the list for a certain year as well, but failed because of a certain other film. But Before Sunrise is a beautiful film about first love, meeting a European American, meeting a train, wandering around Vienna for a short time, and just two people connecting and try to work out what they think the world is. The world just seems to be not quite what it seems to them. They just try to work out where their placement is in the world and what they are in this world. And it's a very humane story about your ideals and how you can try and find your place and how you find your place and what it means to you. It's just a beautiful film, just wonderful. 96, another similar one to Ronin, Crash, but in my defence I like it better than he does. So Crash is wonderful. I've already covered Crash already in videos, so I'm not going to go into that much detail. Go watch more video on Crash, but Crash is wonderful. It's about obsession, again, try to find a way to feel within a world that just seems to have gone to hell. Very much like Naked. It's like the Perry version of Naked, and it's just wonderful. I find it kind of amusing, like in the 90s, I either go for very romantic films or very depressing films about life. It's like one or the other. Okay, 97 is Starship Troopers. Verhoeven's another big sci-fi satire. This time about fascism, about America's need for fascism. Actually, it's about the world's need for fascism. It's about, they're saying America are Nazis in it, but it's the way fascism grows in any culture and how we create an idealised version of the world and then militarise it to try and say that our version of the world is better and we can put it on everybody, no matter who it is. We have to expand, and it's the way human nature is, and it's a satire on that. It's a satire on the idea of what we feed to ourselves and what we tell ourselves to create this kind of fascist right-wing society that will expand. It's about expansionist societies and how they actually are formed, not just from military ideas, but also from social ideas and from what they're watching, what the moral ideology is, and things like that. So it's a very complicated film, much more complicated than it lets on. Okay, for 98, it's another film of the military, but it's the existential version, which is The Thin Red Line, which is a beautiful, beautiful film. Malik's film, I saw it in the cinema when it came out. It's just stunning in the cinema. All those widescreen movement over the grasses and just watching the horror of war amongst the beauty. There's some great performances. You know, Nick Nolte's amazing in it. John Cusack's never been better. It's just so much good stuff in it. Jim Caviezel started off his career with this one. Ben Chaplin's astonishing in this film. There's so much good stuff in it, and it doesn't have one central character. It's just about the experience of war through these different eyes. There's a lot of voiceover, and Sean Penn's in it, another great performance as a guy who's so cynical about the war and people's motives. And it's just about the war machine going through a beautiful island and watching that war machine destroy it and watching the different people, what their interpretation of the war actually is and how the war is kind of useless and everyone knows it, but they've got their own reasons for it. And even a just war, like World War II, has its abuses and has its reasons to be cynical. 99, I'm going for Eyes Wide Shut, the Kubrick's final film. It's beautiful. I saw it twice in the cinema. It looks gorgeous. It's a bit obsession. I just did a video on it, so go see my video. It's wonderfully obsessive, wonderfully deranged about obsession, wonderfully critical of obsession and how we feel ourselves and how we cause ourselves a lot of craziness for no good reason. It's just wonderful. Okay, now we've got 2000. I'm going for La Commune, the Peter Watkins film. I've just done a video on this one. It's 6 hours long. It's all about communist uprising in France in 1871. It's all about the mechanism of communism, like how it starts, what causes it, how it develops, what its downfall is. So what's its ideals and why does it fail, and the outside reasons and inside reasons. And it's just very humane, but it's also very Brechtian film. Like it shows you the sets have been sets, but it shows you the actors in it talking and actually getting a point of view, like what are they about and the tragedy of the whole situation, the tragedy of the lives lost, and the tragedy of the corruption of humanity. You know, why it causes us to go towards communism when it's not even good for us. You know, and people just try and make a living. So it's a wonderful film. 2001, I'm going for Ghost World, which is a Terry Wiseau film starring Thora Bird, whatever you call her. She was from American Beauty, and Scarlett Johansson and Steve Buscemi. It's all about two young women who are graduating from high school, and it's how they go into life. Do you go to be try and still become an arty person, still be a pretentious person as you would be a teenager, or do you conform? So Johansson's character conforms, the other one doesn't. The one starts to mess around with Steve Buscemi's character. So it's all about these basic two snobs who have to deal with life, and how do they deal with life. I just think this is a film that's underrated and not seen enough. It's one of those ones that is about a real life thing that happens to a lot of people, but it's just never really brought up as much as it should be. It's just one of those ones I'm putting on the list because I think it's a great film, really underrated, but it's also a film you should try and see. Okay, 2002, we have Femme Fatale, obviously from the picture. Brian De Palma's beautiful, dreamlike film, which is set as a dream, but it's also, you have differences between reality and dreamlike structure. where the dreamlike section is the most realistic section of the film compared stylistically to the supposedly real stuff, which is more dreamlike in its execution. And so it's a mix between dreams and fantasy, and how they affect us and how we're affected by it. And it's just a wonderful film. It's just gorgeous. So go see it. Okay, 2003 we'll get Takashi Miike's Gozu. The wonderfully absurd, weird as hell gangster movie that I'm not going to try and explain to you. You just go see it. It's weird as hell. It's something once seen, never forgotten. You know, I kind of felt you had to have a really weird Miike film on your list, and this one's mine. This is just like, type of film. A lot of people would go for Audition or Reach the Killer, but that's the one I think is a nice, unconventional one. If you want to see Miike be crazy, but also be wonderful. Right, 2004, I'm going for Vital, Sakamoto's film about grief and the physicality of grief. About what happens when you lose someone, what if you can't remember them, and you start to, and in this case you have to dissect them for a class, and it's about bringing back memories. It's all about physicality and reality, and what's the soul and what's your memories, and what's your reality to someone who's dead. And it's just a wonderful film. It's so moving, it's so different from any other film with grief, so I'd highly recommend trying to see it. 2005 is A New World, the Terrence Malick film about going to the New World. As the Europeans go to America to form a colony, the Indians are already there. A story of Pocahontas, but not done like a Disney thing. It's done like a reality of she lived a tragic life, and people betrayed her. But it's also the idea of two cultures trying to find trying to establish some sort of communication, even it's not really possible. When it's inevitable because Europeans are greedy and didn't really respect the new culture, and the Indians were too naive. How it's going to end tragedy? It's just going to be an abusive relationship. But it's a beautiful film by Malick, all about the tragedy, individually and of the culture. So individually, ends tragically for Pocahontas and John Smith, the character played by Colin Farrell, but it also ends tragically for the cultures. 2006, I'm going for The Prestige, which will really please SGS films. I adore The Prestige. The Prestige is my favourite Christopher Nolan film. It's magicians who are in feud with each other. It's set in Victorian era. It's all about deception, lies to yourself, lies to your loved ones, obsession with trickery. It's everything I like in a film in this film, and it all just comes together beautifully. I adore this film. I don't think no one's ever come close to being as good as this one again, so it's easily my choice for 2006. Right, 2007's Eastern Promises, the Cronenberg film. Kind of underrated, but for 2007 I think it really works. It was follow up to the History of Violence, which came out a little bit earlier and made a big splash for him and Viggo Mortensen. I like this one better though. It's about the Russian mafia in London. It's about prostitution. It's about the weird relationship between undercover policemen played by Viggo Mortensen and the people who he's investigating, and how ambiguous it all gets, and how complicated life can get, and how complicated gangsterism actually is. And it's a beautiful film about the ambiguity of life, even within a kind of a very set social structure. How everything is more nuanced than you think, and how some people are not as kind as you think, some people are more brutal than you think, and it's just a wonderful film. It's just really wonderful. For 2008, I'm going for Speed Racer. Not a surprise, anyone knows me, I'm a big fan of Speed Racer. I love its colours, its naivety, it's just its optimism. I just think it's a beautiful film. I've done Gordon's many videos on this one, so just go see the videos. I adore Speed Racer. It's just great. I'd highly recommend it. 2009 is Fantastic Mr. Fox, Wes Anderson's film about foxes. Animated stop motion, and animals rebelling against the farm, all done in stop motion, and Mr. Fox is trying to deal with his child who's got confidence issues, also dealing with the reality of the farmer and the problems dealing with him. It's just a wonderful film. I adore this one. Go watch it. It's just so good. Okay, 2010 now. We're going for 13 Assassins. Miki's other one on my list. Miki is a wonderfully crazy director. This one is let's kill 100 people at the end of a movie. Epic. Yeah, it's just wonderful. It's utterly brutal. It's at the moment it's when I'm thinking a lot about Miki. I don't know why. It just is. So I'm not sure it would always make this list, but at the moment it is. So this is one of the ones where I'm sure there's other ones who might push through if I did this another time, but this one at the moment I'm really into, and just the Mickey kind of samurai movie I'm really enjoying at the moment, and this one's really entertaining. It's really brutal, and it's so much fun. I mean, also I like Blade of the Immortal, but at the moment it did not make the list, but this one did. So go watch the Mickey going mad with samurai swords. Okay, 2011 is Guilty of Romance. You know, Sion Sono's twisted fable of masochism within feminism and serial killings and bodies cut up. It's just wonderful. It's just very intellectual and emotional. It's just a great film. A lot of people hate it. I don't care. It's my 2011 film. If you want to feel an explanation, I've done a video on it. I've also guested when Touch of Film did the stream with Asian movie enthusiasts and Dion Wynn when we talked about Sion Sono. I talked about it then. I've covered this a lot in this film. So 2012 was a picture one. It's just To the Wonder, the Malick film that a lot of people hate. You know, I mean, the 2010s from Malick have been pretty divisive. I mean, you had this one, you had Night of Cups and Song to Song. Finally with Hidden Life, he got one that people really liked, but this one was the one that seemed to get a lot of people saying this was soulless and horrible, and I thought it was devastating. I saw this from Paul Gavin, and we were devastated with this one. It's all about trying to communicate and trying to connect with your loved one, and how difficult it is if you've got emotional problems, and how it's not quite as easy as you think. It's hard to get communication of different people's needs in life, and how hard it is to connect ultimately, and how hard it is to be unguarded, and how easy it is to fall into your own habits and be guarded, and how it's not good for you, and how much your own society builds that within you, and how do you get away from that? How do you get away from yourself and your habits? It's really devastating. The performances are all great in this one, but very understated, which I think people wanted something different from what the film actually was, because it was about repressed people, and it showed repressed people, and I think people rebelled against that. So, but I think it's wonderful. This is, of this decade's film, this is one of my top ones. I know it's not the popular opinion in this film, but I don't care. Sorry if you don't like it. I thought it was great. Right, 13 is Why Don't You Play in Hell, another Sion Sono film. He was having a very good time this period. Another one, go and watch a podcast about it. It's amazing. It's all about filmmaking and how obsessive people can be about filmmaking images, and how they're seen to other people and how they're seen to themselves, and how we always idolise our own imagery to people over reality, and how it kind of corrupts us, and how we get corrupted by people, how people see us, but also the innocence of actually just making films, and how that affects, how the need for that affects your life as well. It's a very complicated film, but also very simple at the same time, and it's so much fun, and the ending's amazing. The last 20 minutes you'll be stunned by. So Why Don't You Play in Hell, easy winner for 2013. This was probably the easiest choice you could ever make for that year. 14's Fire's on the Plane, another Sakamoto film. It's amazing. There's another version of it from the 50s that's also, which I've not seen yet, but I've heard is also great. But this one is, Sakamoto stars in it as well, and it's just about the horrors of war and how the insanity of war and how far you're pushed in war to actually be an animal, and how brutal it can be to survive if you're on the losing side, because it's set in the Japanese islands as they're getting defeated by the Americans. And it's, how do you surrender without getting shot? How do you avoid getting killed and eaten by your own people? How do you stop yourself going mad? It's just about the horrors of war and how what war can do to your psyche. So that's Fires on the Plain. Okay, 2015, Mad Max Fury Road. Easy. It's a beautiful film. It's an amazing action film. It's a stunner. Just amazing stuff throughout it. Tom Hardy's great in this film as Max. It's very understated for what everyone expected to be a big performance. He's actually quite small. Charlize Theron, probably one of the best performances. Not actually saying that much. They don't say much about this film at all. But it's just a physical endurance test, which apparently the shoot was as well. It's just stunning. It's just so enjoyable. It's so simple a story, but that doesn't matter. It's about the experience, and this experience is really, really amazing. Okay, 2016. I'm going for Elle by Paul Verhoeven, all about a rape that Isabelle Huppert, as a designer of computer games, that's the manager of the computer game studio. She gets raped, and she reacts in a completely different way from we expect, because she just goes on with her life and figures out who raped her and actually starts to play games with them. And it's all about her masochism, it's all about her destructive tendencies, because she's a father who's a killer. And it's also dealing with her son who's got a girlfriend, and there's problems there as well. So it's actually going through a trauma while going through your life, and dealing with people not thinking much of you, and it's just like an unsentimental view of how people can deal with horrible circumstances. You always have the traditional way of people deal with circumstances in a very simplistic way in films. And this one is the plot about how she actually reacts and how it's way more where the bombs within a person's soul are much more hidden than you expect, and how there's not a simple reaction to trauma. There's complicated reactions, and how normally in fiction we simplify to make ourselves feel better. So it's a wonderful film. It's also a black comedy and it's hilarious. So for 2017, I'm also going for another black comedy. It's hilarious and dark, and that's Good Time. The Safdie brothers film Good Time starred Robert Pattinson as a petty thief who's trying to get his brother back, who's stuck in a hospital, and he doesn't want to go to jail because if he goes to jail, because this brother's mentally handicapped, it could be a real problem. And it's how extreme Pattinson's character goes, and how extreme the situation gets, and how messed up it gets, and he never thinks anything through. And it's just this adrenaline rush of it's basically a nervous breakdown of a film. It was a film that put Pattinson on the map as a serious actor, even though he'd done a lot of good stuff before, like in Cosmopolis and the Cronenberg stuff. But that's the one that everyone saw and was like, oh, he can really act. And it's great. Just go watch it. It's so good. 2018, it's Killing, another Sakamoto film. Another film of violence, about the expression of violence and the effects of violence. This time it's about an expert samurai who has a chance to go and prove himself as a samurai, but he's a problem with actually killing people. He's got all the skill, but none of the bloodlust. It's all the bloodlust of the samurai, of various actions. People who've been to war, people who want to go to war, and what's the urge of people to go to war, and what's the urges of people to show their skills, and what's the actual urge of people who want revenge for things done, and how we've all our own idea in relationship to killing and violence, and how it's always complicated, and how none of them actually matched up. It's a really complicated film, but it's also a beautiful film, and it's great. It's kind of hard to do the last couple of years of films because you're still processing and still seeing things, but I'm doing my best. 2019, I'm going for Higher Life, the Claire Denis film. Basically we get weird releases. There's some films from 2019 we got in 2020, and So I'm going for one that I think is interesting that might be underrated by a lot of people. It's set in a space station. It's about Pattinson and a baby, and as the baby grows up, and it's also going back flashbacks to what happened in space station, why the space station's there, and Pattinson being a prisoner in the Royal Prisoner Station. There was lots of experiments going on, and the complexity of survival in space when you have no direction, no sense of where you're going, and it's a very complicated, interesting, humane film about people who are very damaged. And I think I've only seen it once, but I really want to watch it again because I think there's a lot more going on than I appreciated the first time out. I've done a video on this one as well, so go and watch that. So I hope you enjoyed my list. All the films for a film a year for how long I've been alive. Yes, I'm good enough to almost keel over now, alas. But I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was of interest to you. And I'll be back soon with another video. Right, bye for now.